Good evening, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth, Siths, and Jedis. That was special for my guest tonight to another episode of Disguise Coverage, part of the Cover One Sports Network, the only podcast in existence. I say it every week. The only podcast in existence that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. I am your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro 2 underscores ANT. You can find me on TikTok as well at pro__ant. Give me a follow on both of those. Or again, I like to present everyone with options. If follows aren't your thing, that's fine. Gladly take the deed to your house, a blank check, or as I mentioned every week, I like little Rumpelstiltskin games and activities. So, I'll take your firstborn kid instead. Again, you pick. I like to be agreeable. I like to present options. Whichever you find the most value in is what we will go with. I mentioned in the intro there that I added a little something to the intro tonight because of the guest that I have on tonight's show. And if you're watching live here or watching after it being live, you'll see that I'm not alone. But if you're listening, you would have had no idea unless you read the description of the episode, which, kind of spoiler. But nonetheless, I'm not alone tonight. I am joined by one of my favorite people to have on this show, Mr. Bruce Nolan of Buffalo Rumblings, of the Bruce Exclusive, of Food for Thought, of Fantastic Tweets. That's just a little thing I added there. Bruce, thank you so much for joining me. How you feeling? How's life?
I'm feeling fantastic. I feel like the Fantastic Tweets thing, we could find a way to line that up with Fantastic Beasts, which is kind of like a Harry Potter reference. I feel like there's something there. If you want to make something there, Fantastic Beasts and where to find them becomes Fantastic Tweets. And here's where to find them at Bruce Exclusive.
I literally wrote it down. I love where your head's at. You get me. I get you. You're fantastic. I have a question for you. I mentioned in this intro, right, that this is the only podcast that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. Do you know what movie that's from?
Equal amount of blueberries. Not off the top of my head, no.
Casino.
Oh, man, it's been so many years since I've seen Casino.
That's fair.
I think I saw Casino, 98, maybe the last time I saw Casino. Because Casino came out, what?
94,
95?
Yeah, 94, 95, somewhere in there.
I'll bet you I saw Casino. Last time I saw Casino was 1998.
Wow. Fair. Very fair. I see it legitimately once every other month. It's one of my favorite movies ever. And it's always one of those movies that gets played on the random movie channels, which I have, and I'll watch it. But I've incorporated that into my intro now. And, the Sith and the Jedi thing, that was for you. That was a one-off, but
appreciate it.
Yep, you got it. But the casino reference is in every episode now. And I always like to ask people who haven't heard it or who are new to the show since I've started introducing it these last couple months, if they know of it and all that kind of stuff. So good times, fun times. Also good times and fun times are the discussions that Bruce and I will have on tonight's episode. So I mentioned it on Twitter. You can see it in the episode show notes in the description, all that kind of stuff. What Bruce and I are going to be doing tonight we're going to be building the ideal Buffalo Bills draft. We are going to go round by round and talk, the ideal position that gets drafted in this round, what players in that position grouping, so on and so forth. But it's all going to be based on realism and how we think the board is going to fall. And then based on how we think the board is going to fall, how we would like the Bills to proceed based on needs, scheme fits, skill sets, traits, all that kind of stuff. But again, it is based in realism. So ideal is not it would be ideal if Sauce Gardner fell to 25. Not going to happen. That doesn't count.
Ideal within reason.
Correct. That's a good way to put it. Ideal within reason. And yeah, we're going to proceed round by round. We're going to do the first 4 rounds. And then rounds 5 through 7, we're kind of going to group together and talk about overall theme and fit for things like that as we, dive very deep into the first 4 and then kind of give overarching themes for rounds 5 through 7. But before we dive into that, Bruce, I know you're a foodie and you appreciate good food. And I appreciate good food as well, especially pizza. And that's why I've been overjoyed for probably 8 months now to have One Pie Pizza as the sponsor of Disguise Coverage. I genuinely believe it is the best pizza in all of Buffalo. Delicious homemade blue cheese, delicious potato salad. As I mentioned last week, I hate potato salad, but I eat theirs because it's fantastic. They're good people making good pizza. They do different initiatives for charities in the community on different months. And I genuinely can't say enough about who they are as people and can't say enough about the food other than I genuinely think it's the best pizza in all of Buffalo. And got a little testimonial in the chat when I was having a conversation before we went live. Southside Chris, he says, I finally tried One Pie. I live right near there, but I never think about it because I'm surrounded by pizzerias on Seneca Street in South Buffalo. But I must say, I will be going there a lot more. I've received tons of testimonials like that from Chris, from other people who have been to One Pie, and just they confirm what I say. And Bruce, I know you don't live in Buffalo. Where you live is a mystery, kind of. But I suggest the next time you're up here, you get yourself some One Pie pizza, because I think you are worthy of the treat that is One Pie pizza, and I think you should get some the next time you're up here.
Well, I will make a note of it. I introduced my wife to Picasso's Pizza. Nate Geary and I were, I was dropping off some boxes for Nate Geary because Nate was moving last summer, and he was like, man, I need some boxes. I messaged him. I said, hey, I've got boxes. I got a bunch of boxes for moving. Do you want them? Oh. He's like, really? So yeah. So we actually had a long road trip, and we drove all the way up to Western New York to drop off boxes for Nate Geary. And so in acceptance of these boxes, Nate got us Picasso's Pizza. Okay. And so since then, my wife has decided that she absolutely loves Buffalo pizza. So now all the Buffalo pizzas she has to try. I think she's already had Macy's. She loves Picasso. So One Pie is next. One Pie is next. So you know what? I'm down.
Beautiful. I genuinely, I mean it from the bottom of my heart and my soul. You will not be disappointed. I am very confident in you and Mrs. Nolan will love it as I have. And that's it for intro stuff. That's it for sponsorship stuff. I'm going to switch the banner because, Bruce, we're going to dive into building the ideal Buffalo Bills draft. And I found this harder than, actually not harder than I thought it was going to be. I knew it was going to be hard because this draft in particular, given the depth of the draft as a whole, the depth at specific position groupings, and then combining that with the Bills' needs, quote unquote, in this draft, there's so many avenues that the Bills could go in, and there's so many variables just for the Bills themselves, let alone when you start to take into account how the board will fall and other teams' needs and all these other things. Like, how did you feel putting together like your ideal Buffalo Bills draft?
I had to come up with sort of a kind of a method, a structure to define ideal. And so I said was the outside and preferable side of reason. That's what I decided was going to be my definition of ideal, is something that is not insane. So when I say it to you, if I say it out loud or I say it to someone who is reasonably informed and that person recoils when I say it, like, whoa, right? Then by definition, that's not reasonable enough to be ideal.
Gone too far.
If they go, oh man, that would be a stroke of good luck, I'm good with that. Like, that's my call. If they go, oh man, that feels maybe a little unlikely, but okay. Like, that's okay. I'm okay with that. But if I say it out loud, if I taste the words in my mouth and they taste like someone would go, whoa, we're being crazy now, Bruce. Then in that case, I wrote it out. I completely said, no, I'm good with it. I'm going to pass on it. So every single one of my picks for ideal round 1, ideal round 2, ideal round 3, ideal round 4, and then 5, 6, 7, every single one of them is okay. I don't know if it's going to happen, but yeah, okay. But none of them are, oh, no way. No, 0% chance. So that's kind of the world I tried to live in, where I didn't do what you said, Sauce Gardner at 25. Right? I didn't do that thing.
Thank you.
And every single one of them has a specific reason why it could potentially happen. I try to live in the somewhere between like 15 and 45% chance kind of it happening. That's the kind of world I wanted to live in when I was doing this.
Very fair. I love how it's so on par for what you do and who you are, that are like, well, first thing I did was I had to create some sort of rule and or structure for, I was like, that's just on point. Like that.
That's Bruce.
Yeah. That's Bruce.
My wife said one time, you can set your sundial by me.
Yeah, you really can. You really can.
Because listen, say what you will about Bruce, but you know what? He's the same darn guy every single minute of every single day.
If there was any doubt, like in the first 10 minutes of the show, or 8, I should say, if I was like, man, am I really talking to Bruce? Like, once you were like, well, the first thing I did was set a rule and a structure. I'm like, nope, that's him. Got it. I feel confident now. It's Bruce. I'm good. There's the proof right there. I did kind of a similar thing. I had to figure out because again, it's based on what we would like to see based on what this team needs. And so you're sitting there thinking like, okay, ideally, but that idealism is rooted in realism. And then you have to pair that with all these other variables and the player pieces and how you think, okay, if I do this ideally in round one, what does that mean for round two and round three? Does my ideal first round pick change because maybe there's more positional scarcity in the second round or third round at other positions of need? And there's so many thoughts that can go through. So yeah, I literally kind of like wrote down like my main ideas or like theories that I wanted to operate from, or principles, I should say, that guided me through it. So I went through a very similar thing as well. And we'll jump right into it. And for everybody watching live with us here, first and foremost, drop a like if you don't mind. I say it every week. I know it's corny, but likes are tremendously helpful towards helping myself and the entire Cover One team to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. Please and thank you. But also, those of you rocking live with us, we want to know your thoughts. So we're going to start with round one. As we go through each round, let us know what you think of, my ideal picks and positions and Bruce's. We want to hear yours. What are you looking for in round one? Who are you looking for in round one, round two, round three, all that kind of stuff. We love the interactivity and the engagement here on Disguise Coverage. So without further ado, Bruce, you are the guest. So I defer to you. You will go first. Give me your ideal Buffalo Bills round one pick. If you want to preface it too with, the position grouping as a whole, or is it specific to this player? However you want to go about it, the floor is yours.
So the most important thing to understand about this particular pick is this could either be ideal or bad, depending on the way that you look at it. So my ideal pick for round one is Andrew Booth Jr.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you why I think that it's possible. And then I'm going to tell you a reason why it might not even be a good idea, because both of them exist. Now, Andrew Booth Jr. is essentially the Caleb Farley of this year's class.
Spot on.
There's a very, very reasonable chance that he falls until a team decides they're comfortable with medical, because Andrew Booth Jr. obviously hasn't tested, right? This is someone who has a recurring problem with potentially a knee issue. He underwent surgery in January of 2020 on his right knee.
Yes.
And he had Osgood-Schlatter disease, which is a swelling disorder below your knees. So on one hand, this could make him fall to the Bills. On the other hand, if the Bills passed, I'm not going to freak out, because I know probably the reason why they did. Now, I understand this makes it seem like I'm just entirely hedging at this point, but I like the way that Andrew Booth looks on film. I think that there's a very reasonable argument to be made that coming into this class, when healthy, he could very easily be an argument for CB1. That's a real thing that you could absolutely make an argument. You look at Derek Stingley's best tape came in 2019. And Sauce Gardner has been effective and really good. But, of course, you always have the concern about the level of competition and things like that when it comes to players who've played at Cincinnati. So if you wanted to make an argument to me that just based on film, Andrew Booth Jr. is CB1, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
But teams are concerned. You listen to people who are in the know and they're like, hey, teams are concerned about medical. And if Caleb Farley doesn't get taken by the Titans last year, I don't know where he goes, because the Titans have proven that they are willing to stop the fall of a talented player who's injured. And let's be honest. If you're picking in the back half of round one consistently, the way that the Titans have been, it's a perfectly reasonable strategy. You're looking at your team going, how on earth would I get a player of this caliber if they were healthy? And so he did it with Jeffrey Simmons. They did it again with Caleb Farley. The Titans are this team. They're completely willing to take a gigantic swing on a really talented player that they don't think should be there. Now, if medicals are comfortable and the Bills take him, I'm good with that.
Okay.
If, for example, the Bills were to pass on Andrew Booth Jr., I'm not going to freak out, because I know the reason probably why they passed is because he didn't pass medical. And there's a chance that he could just fall completely out of the first round. And if he did, with every pick that goes by after the Bills pass on him, I feel a little bit better, because what you're doing is you're accumulating sample size of teams that weren't comfortable with his medical. And you go, okay, well, the Bills weren't comfortable with his medical. Well, neither were the Chiefs, and neither were the Patriots, and neither were the so on. And so all the stuff, you go, okay, all these teams weren't comfortable with the medical. So
Right.
you automatically start feeling a little bit better. So in an ideal world, it's not Andrew Booth. It's a healthy-ish Andrew Booth. Because let's be honest, if he's completely healthy, he's not making it to 25.
No,
Right?
there were some people who had him as their preseason corner one before all
Right?
the injuries and everything this season.
So if he's completely healthy, he's not making it to 25.
Mm.
And if he's really, really concerning with the knee issues, then he
Mhm.
might fall past 25. So my ideal is right in the middle. I'm Goldilocksing this right here.
Nice. This one's just
My
right.
ideal is a healthy-ish Andrew Booth at 25.
Quick question for you. A healthy-ish Andrew Booth, what corner is he in terms of your ranking? Is he corner 3?
He's corner 2 for me.
Oh, corner 2. So who's your 1?
Yeah. Sauce Gardner.
Oh, and
Stingley is
Stingley's
corner
3.
3 because it's been 2 years since he's been elite.
Very fair. Ooh, very fair. It's funny. I anticipated some, not overlap, but similarity in round 1. And I I went with, ideally, before I get into the players, I would like to see a corner in round 1. I've been banging this drum since last offseason. I really hope I'm not disappointed again this year like I was last year. I've been banging the drum for that corner 2 position, and all these words now that seem to be so well known and parroted and repeated by everyone now, the whole scheme versatility piece and speed or man coverage ability and like all these types of things now. Like the theme for me this offseason for the Bills defense has been the ability to play rock, paper, scissors. And, when teams throw rock, can you throw paper? When teams throw scissors, can you throw rock? You can win rock, paper, scissors just by throwing rock. Like you have a percentage chance of winning, but your odds of winning statistically and significantly go up if you can throw all 3 in that game.
And it goes down the more times you throw rock. Because if the other guy you're playing against knows you only throw rock, your success rate goes down over time, which I think makes it a wonderful metaphor.
Oh, thank you very much. I stole it from Nate Tice, kind of, but I told him I was going to, and we powwowed about it, and he was very cool with it. But yeah, that's an awesome point too. Like when teams know you're throwing rock, you better hope they can't throw paper, because if they can throw paper, then yeah, I guess like maybe you got a shot somehow if they don't throw it all the time. But like that's a significant weakness. So corner has been my need all offseason, and I'm sticking with that in round 1 here. Now, ideal for me, again, I think Stingley, no shot. Gardner, no shot. My ideal, again, if we're operating with that, like I like your range of the 15 to 45% chance. I think this is the most unrealistic of the ideals. My ideal at 25 is Trent McDuffie. I loved his tape. I know he's got short arms. I know Roger McCreary has short arms as well. I think the tape and their technique and their intelligence and the fundamentals that which they both operate with, but if we're sticking with Trent here, his scheme, versatility, and flexibility, his eyes, his intelligence, his hips, his feet, his hands, his tackling ability, his man coverage ability, his pattern matching. There's so much to like on in regards to him. And when you turn on the tape, I've watched full 5 games of him, and I just came away impressed more and more and more. He is my ideal at 25. Booth is right there with him. Booth is my corner 4 for some of the recklessness that he had in 2021 and some of the injury concerns. I kind of factored that in and baked that in a little bit, but that is my ideal, Trent McDuffie at 25. I think he will be gone. So realistically, similar to you, Booth, for all the reasons you mentioned, and I won't dive into it too much because I think you hit the nail on the head with him, his athleticism, the potential ceiling that he offers. Man, if you can just rein in some of that recklessness in coverage and some of the, leaving his feet and flying out of control when he comes up to make tackles or in run support, if you can rein that in and just focus and harness the athleticism and the burst and the explosion that he has, because he already has strong technique as well, like pattern matching and zone and man, and his leaping ability. Like he jumps off the charts, no pun intended, when it comes to a lot of the physical measurables. And there's so much to like with his tape, especially when healthy or even healthy-ish. So he is my ideal in terms of it also being realistic, because McDuffie is my most ideal, but I think he's going to be gone. Booth is right there. And this is where I also want to mention something too. I only have 4 first-round corner grades. I've got it for Stingley, Sauce, McDuffie, and Booth. But I really like Kyler Gordon, and I really like Roger McCreary. I would not be upset at all in an ideal world, even with the need for corner, in my estimation, if the Bills came away at pick 25 with either Kyler Gordon or Roger McCreary. I have high second round grades on them. At pick 25, if you take a guy with a second round grade, I'm okay with that, especially with how many guys usually get first round grades in general. I wanted to know your thoughts on that. I see a super chat. We're going to bring up the super chat in a minute, but Bruce, what are your thoughts on that? Would you consider something like that a reach, or are you on board given the need at that corner position?
I'm fine with it. If Kyler Gordon ends up being the pick at 25, I'm going to feel very similar to the way that you just described. I'm going to nod and I'm going to go, okay, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
He probably wasn't a first round grade. He's not a first
Mm-hmm.
round grade for me, but I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I'm okay with it because he's definitely going to be gone by the time you pick at 57.
Exactly.
So a lot of times it's weird because ideally the best possible value to take a player is exactly one pick before they were otherwise going to be taken.
That's exactly right. That's spot on.
But we can't always get that. So what you do is
exactly.
you try and build this range between when you pick and when you pick again. And either you try and trade back or trade up from your next pick. But sometimes those offers aren't over there. You can't just willy-nilly maneuver around the board because it takes two to tango. And so if you take someone at 25, right, and they have a high second round grade, is it the end of the world? Probably not. It might make you go, there's obviously positional value to take consideration. You got the 5th year option to take into consideration, and things like that matter. It's a little different when it's a running back for me, because again, we've talked about the 5th year option value and things like that when it comes to running backs. But if it's a high second round corner and you're just getting a high second round corner, but you're tacking on a 5th year option, and if the 5th year option has value to you, then you could make an argument it's just as reasonable to take him at 25 as it is at 34.
Oh, very fair.
You can absolutely make that argument based on how much you're saving in money by taking them at 34 versus how much you're potentially saving by having the 5th year option. Yes. So you can make an argument if the 5th year option is valuable to you. If this is a player or a position that you're thinking you might want to tag in the future, then getting a mini tag, which is what the 5th year option is, right? Getting a mini tag might be worth it. So completely okay with that.
Very fair. I think that's a great piece to mention as well. I knew you get to the contractual stuff. And that's my reasoning for, again, like I wouldn't consider it a reach. And I guess in a more like ideal, if we wanted to like, go to the opposite, and the extreme, like, well, the Bills would like trade down and somehow end up with like multiple picks in like the late 30s, early 40s, and then they could grab X, Y, and Z and do all that. But you start to get, as you get more ideal, you start to get more unrealistic. But yeah, so I've said it all along, like I want a corner in round 1, but that's where it ends for me. If the Bills were to get one of my top 6 in the coming away from the first round, I'd be okay with it. Once you get to corner 7, Kaiir Elam is corner 7 for me. Once we hit that, then I'm starting to pivot and look towards, okay, if there was a run on corners and 6 corners went in the first round, I'm thinking one of the top 4 receivers might have fallen, or maybe Zion Johnson or Kenyon Green are available there at 25, or maybe some other blue chip potential prospect at another position fell because of the run on corners. So that would alter my thinking. If there were that run on corners, I'm not sitting there going, well, it's corner or bust in round 1, so we got to get one. No. If my top 6 of Stingley, Sauce, McDuffie, Booth, Kyler Gordon, and Roger McCreary are gone, I'm shifting and I'm pivoting to whatever position of need is up there. So for me, it's wide receiver, offensive line, running back as well. But like you, I'm not a huge fan of running back in round 1, although I would understand it. But yeah, my theory would shift a little bit based on how many corners would potentially go. I wanted to bring up Ned's super chat really quick. Ned, you are fantastic. You're here every week. You donate every week. I love the hell out of you, even though I don't know you. Appreciate you so much. Ned says, what number pick in the draft would we have to trade up for to have a 90% chance to pick up Booth? And what would the cost of that be worth? And then he also commented and said the same thing for Trent McDuffie. For me, Bruce, I'm going to say to get either one, like a lot of it for Booth is going to depend on like the healthy-ish nature, like you mentioned. Right. But if you really wanted to secure him, I think you definitely have to get ahead. You have to get out of the 20s and into the teens. and probably get ahead of Philly, maybe something in like the mid-teens, like 15, 16, 17
Yeah.
range.
I think you have to get to 17 with the Chargers.
Oh, good
I think
call.
that's where you have to get. You got to get ahead of Philadelphia, and you got to get ahead of Pittsburgh. You got to get ahead of New England.
Yep.
And Philly's probably the one who's most likely to trade back with you. I don't think because New Orleans isn't going to trade back with you at this point
No,
because they just traded up, right?
correct. That'd be
So
wild if they traded
yeah,
back.
yeah, New Orleans isn't going to do it. So the target for me, if I wanted to guarantee it, almost 90% guarantee it, is I would try and get to 17 with the Chargers.
Oh, very fair. I like that a lot. And then in terms of cost is so rough to try and predict. But if you're going from, okay, let's stick with that, anchor point of pick 17. If you're going from 25 to 17, a third?
I
Somewhere
pulled up
first?
a chart right
Trade
in
value
front of me
chart.
here
Beautiful. Thank you so
to
much.
see if I
I
could
don't have
try
those in
and
front of me.
do this for us while we're here.
Because it's such
So
a. I'm thinking of.
Draft Tech's value chart, which is what I'm
Yep.
using, 25 is worth 720 points.
Okay.
17 is worth 950. So you have 230 that you have to go. So 230 is your that's your third round pick.
Oh, I nailed it. Okay,
So
cool.
our third round pick is 145. So a 1, a 3, and 2 4s probably. So you're probably talking a 1, a 3, and a 4, and a 4 next year probably.
Way to break it down. Very nice. In your real quick, would you make that trade if it guaranteed you Andrew Booth or Trent McDuffie?
No.
Neither would I. Very fair. Well done. Ooh, little spice, a lot of engagement and activity. And now we move on to round 2. So, Bruce, you and I have each gone corner in round 2, and pretty similarly as well. Again, I think my ideal was Trent McDuffie. I think he's going to be gone. So my ideal is, and based on ranking, Andrew Booth, then Kyler Gordon, Roger McCreary, that range. But I think Booth has the most realistic nature of being in the ideals, like you mentioned as well. But now we moved to round 2. And this is where, for me, 2, 3, and 4 were the hardest to decide what positional grouping I wanted ideally. This is where I really started to weigh, okay, if we go this position here, then we have to address these other positions around 3 and 4. What do those positions potentially look like based on the board, based on the other teams, based on how things will potentially fall? This is where a lot of the avenues and the offshoots and the branches started happening, and the variability started gaining a lot of ground in round 2. So, I preface this round with that, and I defer to you again. You are the guest. Your round 2 ideal Buffalo Bills pick as we build this ideal Buffalo Bills draft.
Now, you remember that in this ideal world, I'm trying to live in the 15 to 45% ratio. I'm trying to live in an area where you go, okay, maybe a little unlikely, but I mean, it's the upside, like I said, the upside of less likely, right? It's the outer skirts of unlikely. My ideal round 2 pick is Sky Moore. I don't think he's going to be there. I really don't, right? But
spoiler, that's my answer too.
Is it really? Okay. Well, here we go. It's Sky Moore. So here's the thing about Sky Moore. Sky Moore is productive.
Yes.
He is a good athlete.
Yes.
He consistently wins against man and zone coverage.
His release
he has
packages.
Good ball skills. My main concern with Sky Moore is I've seen a prospect that reminded me a little bit of him before, and it didn't go well, and that was Zay Jones. I thought pretty highly of Zay Jones coming out, and he was a late riser based on the offseason potential that he had. Where he did the Senior Bowl was really productive, right? They said, hey, maybe he, he's a really good athlete. He came in and tested really well, and he kind of rose up the boards in the general media speak of the sense of the word, and he ended up being a high second round pick that the Bills, of course, traded up to get. So there is some similarities there. Now, I do think there's a really good chance that Sky Moore ends up being a better separator at the next level. But again, went to Western Michigan. So how well is he going to separate? And we know he wins. I just said he wins against man, he wins against zone. But that has to be taken into consideration. He wins against man at Western Michigan. He wins against zone at Western Michigan.
in an
And so
offense that was also very heavily RPO based, and his route tree, not, again, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, but his route tree was severely limited given the offensive
you
system that
know
he
who
played.
else's route tree was severely limited based on the offense was, again,
Don't tell me.
Zay Jones. So you see now where I go this. So I
Yeah.
think there's a chance that he could fall for those reasons, but like the comments said, there's a chance he could go at the bottom of round one too. There's people bringing up Pickens here, George Pickens. Number one, I think George Pickens goes potentially higher than Sky Moore. Also, there are some fairly notable off-field questions about George Pickens. The work habits, the situations. I would be absolutely shocked if he was a Bills pick at any point based on that. I would be shocked. He's not, he doesn't fit the archetype from a football character standpoint that the Buffalo Bills have historically gone for.
I would say, and which we know is very important to this team.
Right.
Ooh, I really like Sky Moore. Obviously, he's my pick here as well. His release package was the first thing that got me, and then the run after catch ability, the explosiveness, the strength and athleticism at the catch point, his route running when given the opportunity to run some more nuanced routes, like even just with his stutter goes and double moves, like his ability to sink his hips and then just burst and fire right out. He has pace to his routes, and he has a level of understanding in how to pace those routes. And get granted, the sample size is small and the level of competition is a fair question. But I saw enough on tape, and especially given the construction of this Bills team, Gabriel Davis on your outside, Stephon Diggs on your other. I think Cole Beasley's value will be appreciated more this year, given his absence, and a true appreciation will be had for him. But even if you think, Crowder's awesome and Isaiah McKenzie is great, McKenzie's on a 2-year deal, Crowder's on a 1. What does the future of the slot look like? If Gabriel Davis continues to ball out, are you going to be able to afford Gabriel Davis in 2 years? You just brought up Zay Jones. Zay Jones and Christian Kirk got paid big time money on the open market. Wide receivers can get paid ridiculous buckets of cash when they become free agents to teams that are desperate. Will the Bills be able to keep Gabriel Davis? I think there's a significant amount of questions for me in this wide receiver room right now that aren't necessarily being talked about. I think like when people talk about first round wide receiver, I think you all the Jameson Williams of the world and this like that, but I think that a lot of it is just like a fun gadget rather than the overall need being addressed and talking about what's going on under the surface. So I see wide receivers still as being a need for the long term for this grouping and maybe even potentially in 2022. But I really like Sky Moore and I like his game. And you hit several reasons, why I like him as well. So I won't go too much further. I've also got one little caveat here. Again, an ideal world. If the Bills were to go running back here, I would be very, very okay with it. I really like Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker is my RB1. I like Breece Hall. I like what he offers. I know he's on the minds of a lot of Bills Mafia. I know what he offers as a complete back. I know what he offers in the receiving game in addition to his speed and power. I do have some questions about contact balance, but Kenneth Walker's my one. I also like Isaiah Spiller. I know he ran a 4.640, but his vision and his anticipation and patience are next level. But the reason I'm not going running back here in an ideal world is because I like a lot of running backs as well in the rounds 3, 4, and even the 5s of the world. Whereas I think there's a bigger drop off from receiver in round 2 to receiver in round 3, 4, and 5 than there is running back in round 2, 3, 4, and 5 for me personally. So I would be okay if they went running back. And if they did, my ideal world is Kenneth Walker at 57. I think he eats up light boxes, takes advantage of that. Just his pace, his speed, his agility, his power. I would like him to clean up and show some more consistency in his pass protection. And I wonder what the long-term plan is with Devin Singletary going out. So I would be okay with that. But Sky Moore is my pick as well. And I wasn't expecting that from you. And I figured we would agree. I knew we'd agree on corner in round 1. I had a feeling we would both kind of land on Booth one way or the other based on how the corners are ranked in this class and what the first round looks like ahead of the Bills. So I kind of called that one in my notes. I wasn't expecting the similar pick in round 2. And now we move on to round 3 for our ideal round 3 picks. And if we go 3 for 3 here, I'm going to laugh hysterically. But Bruce, again, the floor is yours. You are the guest.
I feel like you should go first because otherwise I run the risk of usurping you again. Then you don't have an opportunity to pontificate about your guy, and you should have the opportunity to pontificate about your guy. This is your show, man. I feel like you should go.
That's fair. I appreciate you. I also like that you managed to put usurp and pontificate in the same sentence. I'm a big fan of vocabulary, and that was a very good one. Oh, I see a comment about Devin Singletary in the chat. I'm going to get to that in the end, Bruce, when you are gone, because I have some things to say about that, but I don't want to get too sidetracked, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. My round 3 pick. So for me, we've addressed corner, we've addressed wide receiver. Rounds 3 and 4 for me are going to come to interior offensive line and running back, again, in an ideal world. And a lot of it is going to come down to how the board potentially falls. Based on how I think the board will fall, if we're going interior offensive line, I think that's where you're looking into the worlds of the Dylan Parhams, who I really like. Guard center flexibility. I love his hand placement, his hand power, his athleticism, his explosion from the hips all the way through his upper body. He can roll. Are you laughing? Is your pick Dylan Parham?
Yes.
Come on, dude.
It's Dylan Parham in round 3. I can't even do it. I'm sitting here going, you gotta be kidding me.
So, all right. So, you know what? Fine. You could talk about Parham. I'll go with the running back option if we were to go running back. Unreal.
You gotta go first. I can't. I'm laughing too much.
Unreal.
You gotta go first.
So I'll pivot to you to talk about Parham. If the Bills went the running back option for me in the ideal world, I would like to see Rachaad White from Arizona State. RPO familiarity, zone familiarity, but I also think he can attack gap given his speed and his burst. He's got burst in the short yardage area. He's got long speed to make house calls. He's got receiving ability, whether it's coming out of the backfield in checkdowns, whether it's screens, whether it's releasing, if linebackers aren't blitzing, or you can split him out wide and he can run your screens. He can run your drags, things like that. I think other than Breece Hall, I think is the number 1 complete back in this draft. I think a case can be made that Rachaad White is not the second best running back in this draft, but the second most complete running back when you take all things into account in this draft. He's not in my top 3 running backs, but he's a running back who in round 3, I really like his scheme fit, his skill set, what he does on the field, and his experience at Arizona State, how that all translates to the Buffalo Bills. So if they were to go running back, I would like Rachaad White. Interior offensive line, Dylan Parham. Bruce, floor is yours. That's unbelievable.
I also like Rachaad White here. I think that's a good opportunity. I think that I look at Rachaad White, and I think he's a natural fit in the zone system. There's a little bit of a Darrell Henderson vibe for me when it comes to Rachaad White. That was one of the comps that I was looking at, and that's someone who when Darrell Henderson was drafted by the Rams, I was like, oh gosh, absolutely perfect. That is absolutely perfect. And if you have an offensive line and a rushing scheme that you want to be zone, then Devin Singletary is not your guy. You don't see the best of Devin Singletary in zone. You see the best of Devin Singletary in man gap power schemes. And I think Rachaad White is a perfect fit if you want to do that. If you want to be a zone-based rushing attack. I have a fun stat for you. You mentioned Breece Hall, maybe concerned about contact balance. I have a fun stat for you. Amongst Big 12 running backs with at least 70 rushing attempts in 2021, Breece Hall ranked 17th out of 18th in yards after contact per attempt.
He's got like, then this may just be me trying to find a reason or connect the dots. He's got like skinny ankles. And I feel like he falls down too easily, way too much. Like he pulls some amazing moves and lateral agility. And then the contact balance is just like, yeah, statistically and on tape, it's just like, it's weird.
It's the main reason why he's RB3 for me. That doesn't mean he's a bad player, right? It's just, but vision and contact balance are like the foundational pieces of being running backs.
So then RB1 for you, I think I already knew this, and especially with what you said there. RB1 for you is Isaiah Spiller, and then 2 is Kenneth Walker?
It's Spiller, Kenneth Walker. Yeah, Spiller, Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall. Now, for me, I took, you guessed it, Dylan Parham. And I took Dylan Parham specifically because, again, I think Sky Moore could go at the back half of round 1.
Yes.
And I think that Dylan Parham could go in round 2. So again, every single one of these is maybe he might fall there. And that's exactly where I wanted to live. I wanted to live in this specific space. This is the space I want to live in. So when I look at Parham, I look at somebody who is very similar in my mind to someone like a Roger Saffold. He's a really good athlete, right? For the position, right? He has the requisite size. He has the requisite height. He has the requisite arm length. He has the requisite hand size, and he can move. And
Mhm.
when I look at his movement ability, Parham's a really, really, really good athlete. Like, really good athlete. And people forget that Roger Saffold, 34 years old, is still a really good athlete. And
Mm,
Roger Saffold was a really good athlete coming out of college,
mhm.
right? I mean, this is a guy who had, I think it's 8.6 was his RAS score. And
Something
Dylan
around.
Parham is again in the eights, very similar. Now they both have a little over 33-inch arms. They're both, 6'3", 6'4" in the 310s, 315s. Like, it's similar when it comes to this kind of stuff. And they also move in a very similar fashion. So I think if you wanted to find someone to take over for Roger Saffold,
Mhm.
then I think it's important that you find someone who can learn from Roger Saffold, who's on a 1-year deal and can potentially just slide right in there. And if you told me you could find a player like that in round 3, sign me up every day of the week.
Yeah, I can't believe we both that was unreal. I just still can't believe we landed on Parham. Yeah, we broke him down in the film room last night, and he was a player who had a top 30 visit to the Bills, and his athleticism was the first thing that really jumped off the page for me. You just see him, effortlessly getting to the second level or moving out in space, and you see the quickness. And I mentioned it last night in the film room. So he's athletic out in space, but he's athletic just in his overall body movement. I mentioned, it earlier in regards to him, his ability to roll. You can see like the weight transfer from his feet through his hips, through his upper body in his movements, especially when he's anchoring down or attacking anchoring down in pass protection, or exploding out of his stance and attacking and gaining leverage in the run game. And he consistently gains leverage, and he's got a good understanding of that. He, sometimes he'll have some issues in terms of the timing of when to leave a double team and climbing to the second level. I think that's stuff you can clean up, especially with a really good offensive line coach like Aaron Cromer. But his weight transfer, almost like a hitter in baseball, I just came away very impressed with his weight transfer for anyone, let alone an offensive lineman. And then you add in all the little nuance and technical pieces for him. And again, so, talking about that position grouping in round 3, part of what shifted me towards interior offensive line again is okay. So for me, as we recap the board, we've each gone corner, receiver, interior offensive line. For me, it came down to going interior offensive line in round 3 because, again, there are more running backs in round 4 that I like and I would be very comfortable with. As much as I like Rashad White, and he would be my round 3 target there in an ideal world, there are other running backs that I like round 4 and round 5. So that swayed me and caused me to, you know what? Okay, I think the positional depth is greater at this position. Maybe we can wait. Let's go attack this other need instead. And with that in mind, we shift towards round 4. Bruce, the
What
floor
do you
is
think? Can we go
yours.
4-4?
I
4-4
don't
right
think
here?
I don't think so with this one, because I went running back, and I think you're going to go running back at a different spot, or even if you go running back, it's going to be someone else than who I'm thinking.
Okay, we diverged on this one. I did not go running back here.
Okay, then there we
I
go.
did go tight end, and it's Charlie Kohler here in the 4th round.
Okay.
So, I like athletes at the position. I think it matters. I think having an athlete at tight end is one of the only things that makes having a tight end viable in the passing game.
Mm,
And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So let's assume for a second that you have a tight end and he's not a premium athlete. At that point, the point of having a tight end is that they can do both. That's the point. Tight ends are the original hybrid position, right?
mhm,
They are a blocker who catches. That's what they were initially. Then
mhm.
they became a receiver who also blocked. Right now, they're a receiver who sometimes blocks a little bit. That's what they become now. But the point in having a tight end is that they can do both. If they can't do both, what's the point of having them? Now, I know that Charlie Kohler is not known for his blocking. However, if you're that good of an athlete, I can help you with the blocking thing, especially when I
Mm,
have an offensive line coach like Aaron Cromer,
mm.
who can help work with tight ends. Obviously a lot of the inline stuff that tight
Yes.
ends do, they're working with the offensive line coach more so than the tight ends coach.
Yes.
So I think that when it's not a lack of effort scenario from Kohler when it comes to blocking, it's primarily a technique issue, and it's
Mm,
not great. But that kind of athleticism, that level of intelligence. Eric Turner from Cover One did a film room with Charlie Kohler. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet,
He's so
but
smart. Kohler's
but
so smart.
you can tell that Kohler understands the position. One of the things that makes tight end such a slow developing position is the mental stuff. And that's something we don't talk about very much at all. When we talk about tight ends being a slow developing position, you're learning two positions. You're learning inline blocking in a lot of cases, unless you're Mike Gesicki, but you're learning inline blocking and you're learning the route tree of a wide receiver. It's no coincidence it takes multiple years to learn how to play that position at a high level. And it's also no coincidence that there are only a handful of elite tight ends on the planet. I mean, how many truly elite tight ends are there on in the league? 4?
Yeah,
5?
Like,
it's just not that many. But if you say how many elite receivers are there, there's lots. There's lots of really, really good receivers. And there's a reason for that. But you have to start from a foundation of being a good athlete and being smart enough to pick it up. And if you tell me I can get traits plus habits, then I'm down with it. And this gives me traits plus habits. Sign me up for Charlie Kohler.
Ooh, I flirted with the idea of tight end here, similar to your hybrid thought. I've been obsessed this offseason, much like I was last year with the trends in NFL defenses and moving to this too high world. And this is something that I talked about in depth on last week's episode with Nate Tice. But you've got this too high world that teams are trying to live in now and keeping those too high safeties up, both pre and post snap. And, for the Bills in particular, Josh Allen saw too high coverages post snap 23% of the time in 2019. And then in 2020 and 2021, he saw it 31% of the time and 32% of the time, respectively. And those are trending and tracking numbers in the NFL. In 2017, you had post snap coverages in too high post snap, like around 27%. And the last several years, they've been up over 33, 34%. It's a changing world. And one of the ways to beat them, there's several ways to beat too high coverages. You can still beat them over the top, throw it where they ain't, do what they're trying to protect against, because too high coverages, they want to keep everything in front of them. You can still attack them over the top, like the Bills did with Gabriel Davis, a 75-yard touchdown against the Chiefs in the divisional round. Or you can do things to force them out of that too high world, like running the ball and making teams be unable to give you light boxes, or go with heavier personnel packages like 12 personnel, which the Bills did against the Jets earlier in 2021. And that forced the Jets to go into single high looks, and the Bills shredded it. I really like the idea of 12 personnel becoming a real thing for the Bills this year and going forward, because, like you mentioned, that hybrid position, I think this is a way for offenses to continue to dictate to defenses and take back the control of football games. Because now, if you can run 12 personnel and your two tight ends in Dawson Knox and an OJ Howard or a Charlie Kohler, and both of your tight ends can block and both of them can run routes and have the intelligence to be functional in both, you now have positions that maybe outmatch the defense, and you can potentially change the math. You can now get to so many more runs because of the line combinations you can have. You can get to different kinds of pass protections and run different drops and different sets because of that 12 personnel look. And maybe, again, you force defenses out of a too high look. Or if they don't have a big nickel, do they have to sub out their slot corner and bring in another linebacker or a bigger nickel? Or do they have to go with more numbers in the box? Do they have to go heavier boxes in terms of numbers or personnel? I really think it's an intriguing chess piece. And so that's part of the reason why I flirted with tight end. And again, especially the tight end market kind of went wonky this offseason. What does Dawson Knox's future look like with the Bills? How much money is he going to command? Does he stay around? OJ Howard is on a 1-year deal. What does his future look like? What does the future of the tight end position look for the Buffalo Bills, a position that has been very kind to Josh Allen and could continue to be kind as we move towards this evolution in NFL defenses and this changing trend as they move away from single high and cover 3 looks to more of a 2 high world. So I think tight end's a really intriguing one. And I like the Kohler pick. Obviously a lot of us at Cover One are banging the drum for Kohler. I did go running back here, as I mentioned and prefaced. This running back is my favorite running back in the entire draft class. And although there are several that I like, it was mentioned earlier in the chat, and this person asked me like, oh, hey, where's your love for this guy? And I told him, pump the brakes, be patient, it'll come. My ideal 4th round pick is Mr. Brian Robinson, running back out of Alabama. the Bills continue to see light boxes. I want a running back who can attack those light boxes. Brian Robinson has done it time and time again at Alabama. Bama sees light boxes all day with Bryce Young and Jamison Williams and Mechie and even Slade Bolden. And his ability to get north and south fast, plant his foot in the ground, and attack is beautiful. He runs like a angry bull when he has the ball. 6'2", 225 pounds, runs a 4.5, 340. And I know people want a 4.4 running back, but if you're 225 pounds and you run a 4.5, a low 4.5, you're a fast man. He breaks tackles. He breaks arm tackles. He is an ideal running back to attack light boxes. He runs mean. He runs angry. He can function in zone. He can function in gap. He can function in RPO looks. He can pass protect. I think he's a very, very, very strong run blocker. I think he's a pass protector. I think he's right up there with the Kyron Williamses of the world out of Notre Dame when it comes to pass protection as a running back. His ability to understand concepts and then functionally execute and be able to deliver. I also think he's got some receiving ability out of the backfield, both in terms of design routes and design plays to him in the pass game, but also just releasing and being QB friendly, getting the ball in his hands and making things happen. He's someone who I really fell in love with his tape, watched 4 full games of his, and regardless of opponent, regardless of game script and situation, he just continues to pound and attack, and he wins in a variety of ways. I think he's got really good feet as well, and he can burst off some runs from time to time. Now, maybe he's not making those 60-yard house calls, but he can turn a 4-yard gain into a 6 or an 8-yard gain, and he can turn an 8 or a 10-yard gain into 20, 25, and I think he's got more speed than he gets credit for. He's my favorite running back in this class. I would love to add him in round 4. I actually think there's a chance he potentially goes earlier, but he's an ideal 4th-round running back target for myself. And now we shift. So we deep dove into rounds 1 through 4. And now rounds through 5 through 7. Again, Bruce, I mentioned in the DMs that we did it for all these rounds and really went even further. We would be here for forever. And we have a penchant of going long every time.
We do.
You join me here on this show, but we stuck to it the last time. We kept it within in the city limits. We're going to keep it within the city limits tonight because you, as I mentioned to you earlier offline, you were very gracious. Wednesday, part of the reason, a little peek behind the curtain, since my move to Wednesdays at 7, my schedule doesn't really mesh and jive and align with Bruce's schedule because he records his show on Wednesday. So Bruce is joining me. Then he's going to get off. He's going to rest his voice and chill for a little bit. And then he has to record his show and do all of that work. So that being said, I don't want to keep you here forever. So we're going to go in this as one group here, rounds 5 through 7, the later rounds of day 3. Let's talk about, from a high level, holistic perspective, what positions are you looking for the Bills to add in these later rounds? What are you looking for them to address? Is there a specific player you want targeted, or is it more, these certain positions could use some depth and reinforcement, and that's where your head went to?
Give me Ty Chandler in the 5th.
I knew it. I knew it.
Give me Ty Chandler in the 5th. You knew I was going to come. I'm nothing if not consistent.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to Ty Chandler, there's certain things I simply want my running backs to be able to do. I want vision. I want contact balance. I want them to make the right decisions. I want them to have enough juice to be able to turn a long run into a little bit longer run, not necessarily 60-yard runs, because quite frankly, 60-yard runs are just not that common. So I'm not going to build my preferred running back skill set around things that are extremely uncommon. It's a little bit like the conversation we have about sacks and pressures. And that's so small a percentage of your rushes are sacks that just deciding to evaluate people based on sacks is just not
fool's errand.
It's not smart. It's the same thing with big, gigantic 60-yard runs. 60-yard runs happen 4 times a year, if that. So you're going to carry the ball 200 and something times. I'm not going to base my entire running back evaluation on that.
Yeah.
So for me, when I look at a running back, okay, can you set up your blocks correctly? Do you have vision? Do you have enough burst? Are you a smooth runner? Can you catch the ball? All these things Ty Chandler can do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing that is the reason why he very well may be here in the 5th is because he's somewhat of an average finisher, right? Mm-hmm. When it comes to the end of runs, there's not a lot of times when you're going to, and he's still going. Yeah. Like that's just not a thing with Ty Chandler very significantly. But you know what?
He's not Javonte Williams.
He's not Javonte Williams. He's not. And I was a huge Javonte Williams fan.
Yes, you were.
He's not Isaiah Spiller. You know what I mean? He's not Isaiah Spiller in regards to vision and contact balance. But if you're looking for someone to get you everything that is blocked, Ty Chandler can do that. So, and that's exactly the type of running back I want to get in the back half of back half of the draft. If you're going day 3, you're not going to get you a running back who's going to be like, you know what, we're going to get you everything that is blocked and then a bunch more, and we're going to take 60-yard touchdowns. Those people go in round 2. Like those people don't go in round 5. So when I'm looking at round 5 running back, I'm going, okay, can I get someone? Is Ty Chandler going to make you look silly in open space like Brees Hall will? No, no, he won't. He's not going to make you look silly. But you know what? Every time I watch Ty Chandler, I go like this. Yeah.
Yep. Nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just nod and I go, yeah. Okay, good. And I think to myself, I'm watching in slow motion because the little peek behind Bruce's curtain, right? I'm not smart enough to watch all 22 or college film at full speed and catch everything the first time through. I just can't.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I
think that's for a lot of people, though. I think that's for a lot of people.
I watch it really, really slow, right? I'm watching it really slow because otherwise I'm gonna miss it. I'm just gonna miss it. So
bound to happen, yeah.
My voice has already started to go. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I heard a tweet.
My voice is starting to go already. I'm sorry.
He's a real person.
Did I just cough into this microphone or did I mute it?
No, you coughed.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I tried to click the mute button.
You're my voice is fine.
My voice is already starting to go, and I have to record my show in a while. I'm going to sound really bad here. I'm going to be like, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you for listening to the Bruce exclusive. That's what it's going to sound like. But
that's right.
When it comes to third day running backs, just get me a double, right? Just hit me doubles, right? If I hit the ball, I need you to have enough leg speed to get to second. I don't want to be constantly one base behind because of your lack of foot speed, right? And I want you to make contact with the ball. That's what I want. Look at me, baseball analogies.
I'm very now. If we were doing the thing from the beginning of like, am I sure this is really Bruce? If we fast forwarded to this point, now I'm like, this guy's a fraud. This isn't Bruce. He made baseball reference. What?
No, not even the real guy. So for me, I'm not interested in Ty Chandler in round 2. I'm not interested in Ty Chandler on day 2, right?
Yeah.
But if you're getting toward the mid part of day 3, sure, why not? Functional. Just give me functional when it comes to running backs, and I'm good with that.
Yeah. Ooh, I like it. Very fair. Why don't you touch on quickly if you got your round 6 or round 7 guys or positions that you want to touch on and hit that while we got the mic to you.
I'd like to see a developmental offensive tackle. Take a swing on traits. If there's a Seantrell Henderson in this year's draft, right, then go ahead and take your swing now. Mostly because if you look at the swing tackle scenario for the Buffalo Bills right now, you have a player that you drafted last year from Miami of Ohio, who I don't think was very good last year. I don't think there's a scenario that you can feel really comfortable with him in a more expanded role based on what you've seen so far. Now, one of the best ways to get him experience is to use him as a 6th offensive lineman, which the Buffalo Bills did. And that's awesome. That's fantastic. But I don't want to take something like a swing tackle role and just assume with it. So give me a swing on traits on day 3 and let me have some depth there at swing tackle. Another thing I'd like to see on day 3 is a safety. And the reason I'd like to see a swing on a safety is for obvious reasons with Jordan Poyer, but also I love Jaquan Johnson. I'm a huge Jaquan Johnson guy. I'm a huge Jaquan Johnson guy. But I can simultaneously be a huge Jaquan Johnson guy and have very, very little interest in seeing him play meaningful defensive snaps.
Yeah, he has limitations.
I mean, Jaquan Johnson is not an above average athlete for the position. Although, show me the lie, Anthony. And so for me, when I look at Jaquan Johnson, he's exactly the kind of person I want in a sub package role. And I admire his ability to be able to stick on a roster this long, given how there's a concern there when it comes to his functional athleticism. My voice is given out again. But when it comes to safety, you have to prepare not just for Jordan Poyer. You have to prepare for the idea that maybe DeMar Hamlin doesn't become that guy. And if you want to take swings for depth, I think offensive tackle and safety are two of the things I'm looking at.
Very fair. I second your notions in those rounds 5 through 7, and I'm going to break down some more thoughts that I have and some people that I have. But Bruce, We're going to send you on your way now. You have been, like I mentioned earlier, the word I continue to use, gracious. I know you're a busy man and your voice is weary and break it down. I want to give you ample time to rest so you can go full tilt into the Bruce exclusive. But as always, you are tremendous. Like I said in the intro, you are one of my favorite people to have on the show. I enjoy talking ball with you and just talking Bills and football in general any and every time that I possibly can. And just in case people don't know who you are or where they can find you or what you do, why don't you let the good people know all that kind of stuff, and then we'll send you on your way.
If you are so inclined, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Bruce Exclusive. My show, The Buffalo Rumblings, the Bruce Exclusive, drops on Thursday mornings. In addition, I do a live show with Nate Geary on Friday evenings called Food for Thought, which drops as a podcast on Saturday mornings. And in the event that you were someone who migrated to this show because of me, if you're listening to the show right now because you saw that Bruce was going to be on the show, stop what you're doing. Okay. Make sure to subscribe to Anthony's content. There are people here right now that are very, very good at this job. So Anthony's one of them. Kendall is in the comments right now talking, right? I cannot speak highly enough of the two of them and the work that they do. So by all means, if you are here because I like Bruce and Bruce is on the show, stop and take stock in the things that you're listening to and the content creators that are part of this. So make sure that you do that. They are every bit worthy of your time as I am. And make sure that you do that before I run out of my voice again.
I appreciate the kind words. That's I wasn't expecting that. Thank you so much for saying that. I think I'm great. Kendall, not so much. So we'll forget about Kendall. No, Kendall's great too. I know he'll appreciate the kind words as well. Yeah, he threw up a little heart there in the comments there. Bruce, you are a gem as a person and as a football mind. Thank you for the kind words and for your time and anything and everything. And yeah, I hope your voice heals up in the next little bit as you do the Bruce exclusive, and we'll see you around.
I'm going to go finish Moon Knight, and then I'm going to rest my voice and then get back to the Bruce exclusive.
It sounds good. I appreciate you. Later, Bruce.
Catch you later.
Oh, man. One of the best out there. I enjoy having Bruce on literally every single time I possibly can. Yeah, sorry, Kendall. You know how it is. You know how we do here. I got to throw you under the bus every once in a while. It's just, I'm Palpatine. It is what it is. You didn't believe me when I told you, but it's real. I'm Palpatine. But yeah, Bruce is amazing. I know anybody and everybody should know who he is already. He was one of my favorite people to look to before I started doing a Bills podcast. And now that I'm here, working alongside him and, doing shows with him and hearing the kind words coming from his mouth about me, it's honestly truly humbling. And I'm very appreciative of him and his work and appreciative of everybody here still riding with me. We're going to continue to go down this rabbit hole in the draft. There's some questions that have been coming up in the chat I want to go back to. I want to pull up, also give some more thoughts on rounds 5 through 7. I want to hear your thoughts. Who are you guys targeting? Who do you want? So on and so forth. All of that kind of stuff. But to wrap up here on rounds 5 through 7, Bruce hit on certain points. And I wanted to, further some of that and also give mine as well on this show. I think I would like to see a double dip at corner. And in the scenario we've given, the Bills went round 1 corner for both myself and Bruce. I would like to see a corner again in the back end of rounds 5 through 7. Just because why not? I don't think you can ever have too much corner depth. I don't think you can ever have too much of a premium position. Someone like Damari Mathis out of Pitt, I've mentioned him several times on Disguise coverage with Kendall, on the film room with Kendall and Eric Turner. We've talked about him in various ways, put out Twitter content for him. He's flashy in terms of his physical presence and traits, his speed, his physicality. He's got some technique to clean up with his footwork, how aggressive he is and how much he bites on double moves and routes designed to take advantage of his aggressiveness. He will take that bait. But then he does have tremendous recovery speed. Coming from that Pitt defense, it's going to translate well to what the Bills do in terms of their zone defense, their coverages on the back end, their pattern matching ability. I like what he offers a lot. Yeah, as Ron says right there, he's a sleeper. He is. He's somebody who I think realistically could be targeted in the 5th or the 6th. I also think once you start to get to like round 4, that's where you see teams start to not so much I don't want to say reach because I feel like that devalues the player they pick, but I feel like that's when you start to see teams go for need and scheme fit. So you might have a board where, Timmy is hands down the best corner that's left on the board. But you're going to get a bunch of teams who aren't going to see Timmy like that or aren't going to want to take Timmy because he doesn't have the skill sets or the scheme fit needed for their team. The back end, the day 3 picks, 4 through 7, especially 5 through 7, that's when you start to see teams go more for that scheme fit or that individual team need or fit a little more. And that's where you start to see guys continue to fall, or guys that you didn't think were going to go in the 4th round, go in the 4th round, or vice versa, because you start to see those needs try to be met by these teams. But Mathis is one that ticks a decent amount of boxes. And someone like, Alante Taylor, some people have him earlier. Some people think he could be a round 3 guy because of his physical ability. I think he could last until round 4, round 5. I don't see him as a corner. I see him as a safety. And if you're projecting him at safety, I think that moves him down the board a little more. But his physical traits and physical ability is someone that I think is worth taking a shot on late on day 3. And much to Bruce's point, anything in rounds 5 through 7, continue to reinforce those premium positions or those positions where the Bills don't have a lot of depth. So give me another corner, give me a safety, give me a linebacker, give me more interior offensive line. If Lacita Smith somehow falls to round 5, I would absolutely love that. That would be tremendous. I think he's going to go more like round 4, maybe even late round 3, but I think round 4 is the sweet spot. Give me a Lacita Smith. Give me potentially a Cade Mays. I know there's some people who like Chris Paul from Tulsa, not the basketball player, the football player. Malcolm Rodriguez, that's one of Bruce's guys, linebacker from Oklahoma State, because I think the Bills' depth at linebacker could potentially be questioned. Ron's got one. Josh Thompson, from Texas. Kendall did some film breakdowns of him and put it out on Twitter. Kendall, at Mersky Kendall, give him a follow and take a look at his Josh Thompson breakdowns. Elishar with a comment here. My late round corner choice is Josh Blackwell out of Duke. Good length, athletic, and can double as a returner. Paved Dave says we need to draft a safety. Hyde and Poyer want to be paid. We're not going to be able to afford 2 highly paid safeties. I think that's a fair comment. That's part of the reason why I don't think safety happens early, but if it did, I wouldn't think it's absolutely nuts. The Bills like to stay ahead of the curve, and that curve is curving when it comes to Hyde and Poyer. Like, what does Poyer's future look like? Even if Poyer and Hyde both got extended, their years of continuing to produce at a prime premium level, it's going to start to diminish as they continue to go older. Although safety ages more gracefully than other positions, but they're going to start to hit a wall a bit at some point. And this safety position, man, it's so important for what the Bills do. Everything that I mentioned earlier about 2 high coverages and how offenses can affect them. The Bills are not the blueprint, but they're one of the forefathers of that 2 high safety movement and world. And, the show is called Disguise Coverage because of what the Bills do on the back end with disguising coverage. And a lot of that is because of what Hyde and Poyer do. Like, they are today's modern prototypes for the safety position in the NFL, where you don't have a free safety and a strong safety anymore. There is no more, well, here's my Earl Thomas and here's my Cam Chancellor. Now it's, no, I have a Jordan Poyer and I have a Micah Hyde. They both can be the free. They both can be the strong. They can function in the box. They can function deep, single high or 2 high. They can function in zone. They can function in man. They can cover in the slot. They can cover in the flats, the hook curls. They can rob. They can do so many things. That is so important in today's NFL, and especially to this Bills defense, that I don't think it's nuts if you draft a safety in the first 3 rounds this year and then let them sit for a year, try to use them in sub packages in 2022. Maybe you don't get the best value in 2022 out of it, but potentially in the future, especially if Poyer's not going to stay, I think there is a case that can be made for drafting safety early. But even if you don't, I'd like to see one on the back end. Verone McKinley out of Oregon is someone who I've had my eye on all year. He just always seems to always be around the ball, just gets picks. He's in good position. He's got some thump to him, coverage versatility. His size isn't too much of a concern, but there is a knock in that regard, and he has to clean up some footwork and some technique pieces, which, again, I think is kind of par for the course when you're looking at somebody in the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round. But you could do worse than somebody who seems to always be around the football one way or the other and has ball skills and production at the college level for a top program. And Two Scoops says Lewis Cine has grown on me. I love Lewis Cine. He's my safety 3. behind Kyle Hamilton, Jaquan Brisker, and then Lewis Cine, but I love his game. I've got a legitimate second round grade on him. His ability to come forward and make plays from depth is tremendous. He rarely takes himself out of position. He takes good angles to the football. He clicks and closes intensely. He's got a quick trigger and he comes up with a purpose and bad intentions. He rocks dudes. He had a hit against Bama, Brian Robinson, run back who I talked earlier. Cine is roughly like 6'2", 200 pounds. And Brian Robinson is 6'2", 225. And Cine absolutely wrecks him in the either the national championship or the SEC championship. I don't remember which one. But Cine just has so many plays like that coming from depth and just laying the hammer on guys. And then in coverage, he's rangy. He's got good ball skills. He's calm. On the back end, he can make plays on the ball. I'd like to see more interceptions come from him, but he's somebody who I find very, very, very intriguing. I really like Lewis Cine's game. Got to take a time out because Jim has a question. Jim says, is that a Christmas tree set up in April? Jim, it is. And I'm going to make a bold statement here, Jim, and I'm going to say, I feel like you don't watch the show a lot, which is okay, because better late than never. That little Christmas tree, it stays up all year round. Right now, if you'll notice, it's got light blue garland. And then if I take away your comment there, you see some yellow garland down there at the bottom. That's because it's got Easter garland. This is an Easter tree. Right now, I changed the garland based on holiday or month or a variety of things. See, Kendall gets it. He says, Jim, how dare you, in all caps, and then some ha-has. Yeah, I changed the tree based on holiday. So 4th of July, have some red, white, blue patriotic stuff. In the fall, we'll get some some reds, some oranges, some yellows, some fall colors. Christmas is Christmas. February, did it with hearts and reds for Valentine's Day, and green, it was a bunch of shamrocks and green garland for St. Patrick's Day. And then what happens from Christmas time, I take the little tree, I move it over there, and then I put an even bigger Christmas tree and go hard with Christmas there for the tree. I love Christmas. I try to keep the Christmas tree up all year round. I got vetoed by the wife, but her compromise was, okay, we could do a little tree and put it in the office. So that's why it's there. Sorry to distract from everyone, but yeah, that's why the tree is there. A question here that got brought up multiple times. I also answered this on Twitter as well. I wanted to start to address this. I've seen it come up multiple times here. Comment that we got here is, could we take a hybrid corner early like Daxton Hill, who could also play safety? And then I also saw this comment from Joel earlier saying, thoughts on the theory of drafting Hill and starting Taryn outside. So I like Dax Hill. I like how athletic he is. I like his burst. I like his closing ability. I like his intelligence. I like his plays on the ball. I don't see the outside corner piece in Dax Hill, and I could be wrong. Evaluators see different things. You can put the same tape on in front of 10 different people, and you can get like legitimately 7 to 10 different answers in terms of evaluation, round grades, skill sets, strengths, weaknesses, projection, and translation and sustainability at the NFL level. I really like him as a slot guy. As kind of like a big nickel or monster man. I like his free safety versatility as well and his ability to function deep, but he has very little outside corner snaps in college. He has 35, 8 3 years ago, 8 the following year after that, and then 19 at outside corner this past year for Michigan. And again, that's not to say that he can't do it in the NFL. I just think that's a big stretch to ask him to do that, to change position completely. Also, apparently he's been on record as stating that he doesn't want to play outside corner, which is fair for him. So I'm not on that train of draft Dax Hill and have him play outside corner and then transition him to safety. I'm not a huge fan of that. If we're going to do that, I'd rather just grab an actual corner in round 1, or if all the good corners are gone, that's fine. Let's move away from the corners and let's take, like I said, if there was a run on corners in the first round, let's get the best interior offensive lineman that fell, or receiver, or one of these other high value positions potentially. And then as far as moving Taryn, I know Taron Johnson has some outside corner snaps in college. I don't see him moving. He is a premium nickel position. The nickel corner, that slot corner, is a viable, valuable starter in today's NFL. I know it's not necessarily paid like that, but majority of teams play nickel. You have to function in that way against these spread offenses in today's NFL. And Taron Johnson, his ability to fit the run, his ability to function almost as like a third linebacker is almost unmatched. He's the most physical nickel in the league, and he's right up there with the Mike Hiltons and the Kenny Moores of the world in terms of best slot corners in the NFL. I don't think you just take a guy like that and, okay, cool, we'll kick him outside. Also, I know there are some similarities to slot corner and outside corner, but they are different positions, different techniques, different responsibilities, different ways you just turn your body and what you're used to doing and the position you're used to playing. Like, I think taking him out of a spot that is valuable and where he is very strong at and moving him to another, I think you start to create all these moving pieces that maybe work out in the end, but it just seems like a lot of movement for the sake of creating movement. So I am not a fan of the Taron Johnson to outside corner movement, and I am not a fan of the draft Dax Hill to play outside corner and then transition to safety, even if it's 1 year. Although I do like, again, Dax Hill as a prospect, his speed, his burst, his physicality, his intelligence. He's got a lot to offer and a lot to like when you watch the tape. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that notion. I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. But for anybody going through, and you know, I see a lot more comments coming through on safety. I kind of want to talk about that for a bit. That is a position that you're going to have to address one way or the other if you're the Buffalo Bills. That position is so vastly important to this defense. And again, like if you're looking at this Bills defense, right? I know a lot of people give Tremaine Edmonds flack, but if you're looking at a year next year where there's no Tremaine Edmonds and potentially no Jordan Poyer, those are both big holes that are created in this Buffalo Bills defense. I know a lot of people, you know, Tremaine Edmonds, he's very polarizing, but he is a very strong deterrent for what the Bills defense does. And he is a domino piece that allows others to succeed. It may not show on the stat sheet. And yes, he gets beat at times. Yes, he's out of position. Yes, he makes mistakes, all these types of things, but he plays a very valuable role. His size, his athleticism, his intelligence. If he's gone, and then you're also losing one of your guys that allows you to function in different looks and disguise coverages and play games to the offense, those are two big, heavy losses potentially coming up next year. So I like the idea of starting to get ahead of the safety curve now. It's just a matter of where that comes in the draft. That's also another reason why, you know, Ned asked the question earlier in terms of moving up to trade up for Booth and McDuffie, and Bruce laid out what that would cost relatively. Part of the reason why I don't want to trade too much draft capital, even though the Bills do have such a strong roster, right? And the Bills have, this is also a question that was asked to me on Twitter as well. You know, the Bills have this strong roster. So you're not going to see like 7 or 8 rookies make the team and contribute and all this kind of stuff, right? Oh, I see that question about Elam. We'll get to that in a minute. But you see all these, you know, thoughts about that world and that idea. And actually, you know, I'm gonna address this now about, you know, Mr. Kyrie Elam. Question here. I like McCreary. He's extremely competitive. How about Elam? Is he also a perfect fit for us given his ability to find the ball? Elam is my corner 7. I like his frame and his size, and he ticks all the boxes from a physical standpoint. I didn't love the tape. I was very meh on his 2021 tape. Now, there's a lot of variables and reasons off the field and behind the scenes that potentially could have contributed to that. Florida was kind of chaotic and a mess from a structure standpoint and from a mental headspace kind of standpoint in 2021, but he showed some real strong flashes at times in coverage. Other times he was too grabby. I don't think he necessarily used his size and his length all the time and that physical ability, but he's got speed, he's got length, he's got size. I'm okay if the Bills got him in the second round. I don't like him at 25. He's not in that, you know, I have 4 first round grades on corners this year, and then I've got high second round guys like Kyler Gordon and Roger McCreary, who I'd be very comfortable taking at 25. Elam is the cutoff. Well, I should say McCreary is the cutoff. After McCreary, there is another corner that I want in round 1, and Kyrie Elam is included in that. Again, he's got some plays where he really flashes. He's got some good coverage, and then others where he's just kind of middling and meh. And I know corners cover, and their primary job is to tackle, but his tackling is very unreliable, especially in that Alabama game. He's just whiffing left and right in a variety of ways on screens against running backs coming forward. He misses a lot in a variety of ways, but I do like him as corner 7, and I'd be okay with him in the second round. I know he was asked a lot about here, so I wanted to address that notion there. But yeah, if you look at this Bills defense, you're going to have to start to address that safety position at some point. And talking about trading picks and moving up. Part of the reason I want to keep picks is because I know the Bills roster is good and rookies aren't going to make it and so on and so forth. And they have a high chance of getting cut considering how good the roster is. But I still want to be able to continue to develop the pipeline and have that strong bench given the turnover you might continue to see. I don't want the Bills to get too top heavy to the point where it's like now there's holes. I know the Rams won the Super Bowl last year with their whole stars and scrubs motto type of thing, but that traditionally hasn't worked. You got to have that pipeline. You have to have that balance. And with the money the Bills have committed to Josh Allen, Tre'Davious White, and Stephon Diggs, and potentially others coming down the pipeline, I'd like to be able to continue to churn over that depth and that youth and that affordability and that contract value and production by keeping picks in the first 4 rounds. If you want to trade day 3 picks, that's completely fine. If you want to trade day 3 picks and acquire another 4th or another 3rd, I'm okay with that. But I don't want to trade, especially given how this team is constructed. And I think they legitimately need another corner, at least one. Legitimately, they need another running back. Legitimately, they need another wide receiver. And legitimately, they need another interior offensive lineman. Those are 4 premium positions and needs where I think the need is legitimate. So I'm not going to be a huge fan of trading picks in those first 4 rounds to move up. Now, if you want to talk about futures, that's a different discussion. Or again, day 3 picks, I'm okay with that. But given the needs of this team and the future, yes, the salary cap will go up. Yes, they will have more monetary space as the years come through. But I don't want to bank too much on that and bite off more than we can chew. So that depth is important, especially in those first 4 rounds, given how this draft is. And especially even how much depth there is in this draft. There's a lot of, this isn't a very top heavy draft where like there's studs in the first 15, but there's so much 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round talent in this draft. I want to capitalize on all of it. I'd love to maximize it. I would love to have as many picks possible in rounds 2, 3, and 4 and just maximize all of it. Set yourself up for success and have guys who can contribute in 2022 and then be real functional pieces of a core in 2023, 24, 25. And then 2 Scoops saying it. Yeah, Bean said in less than specific terms, he does not have that many round 1 grades on players this year. Trade back scenario was real. Yeah, majority of the times, I know the comment was he has less than 32 first round grades. That's kind of par for the course. Usually 20 is kind of like the sweet spot, usually for teams or graders where you'll have like 20 first round grades, and you can have anywhere from like 15 in a slow or down year all the way up to maybe like 25 on a good year. But 20 is kind of like that medium value where you see, most first round grades tend to come through, which again, if you're the Bills at 25, that means more often than not, you're probably taking guys who you have 2nd round grades on, which is why, as Bruce and I talked about earlier, I'm very much okay with the Kyler Gordons of the world. And I'm very much okay with the Roger McCreary's of the world. Give me that player who may have a 2nd round value, but is still a good player, can start for you and can do things for you in 2022 and beyond. And then having the 5th year option helps even more because you got that affordability baked in to a premium position like corner, especially if you have to do some reshaping and retooling on other pieces of the team as a whole, but especially on the defense. And there's still so much to go over and go through when it comes to the draft. I'm throwing up the banner for the Toodles, you guys. We're starting to wind down here on the draft episode, on the Building the Ideal Buffalo Bills draft episode here. I want to thank everybody who rode with myself and Bruce live on tonight's episode. All the engagement, as always, was tremendous. The chat, the energy, the questions, the thoughts, concerns, all that kind of stuff. Very engaging, not just even between you guys, but with myself and Bruce as well. So thank you so much for being here live. While you're here, please drop a like. Again, I know it's corny. I know several of you guys have shouted it out during the episode, and I appreciate your support for that. Drop a like while you're here, on your way out, or while you're hanging out here, anything like that. It goes a long way towards helping myself to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears, and the whole team at Cover One as well. Please rate and review and subscribe to Cover One, to Disguise Coverage here on YouTube. If you're listening on one of the audio platforms, please rate and review and subscribe on there as well. Please, 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 please. Also, One Pie Pizza, the sponsor that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, they're tremendous. Their online menu, where can you find it? In the episode show notes here, whether you're on YouTube or any one of the podcasting apps or platforms. Check them out. Best pizza in Buffalo. You will not be disappointed. And then I want to talk about, as we start to close out here, Jowl mentioned it. He asked the question, he said, are you doing a live draft show again? Yes. So we will have on the Cover One Network, we will have a live show for night one on Thursday of next week. We will also have a live show on night two of next week. And then for myself and Disguise Coverage, Kendall will be joining me next week on Wednesday's episode. And we will be doing a kind of like a draft preview anticipatory thing the night before the draft, but a lot of it is going to be based on you guys, live engagement, live viewership, and also a lot of things going on Twitter, the Cover One Slack channel. Kendall and I are basically going to do just a full draft question and answer episode. I've always said it a lot with how engaging the chat is and how much I love it, that I would love to have an episode where we just sit back and just engage and have questions asked. So starting out on Monday, we're going to put out a lot of social media posts and tweets and things like that, asking you guys for questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, all that kind of stuff. And then we will be answering everything live on Wednesday, bringing in live engagement and questions from the live chat and everything like that as well. So we'll be hitting on that for next Wednesday. And then question from Ron. Ron says, Ant, are you going to the draft with Eric, Aaron, and Greg? I had a lot of moving parts to move around, and I unfortunately am not. I had some things to work out through in real life and then the credential process and everything, and just kind of missed out on being able to fully line everything up. But fingers crossed for next year and Senior Bowl next year. I had a lot of moving parts this year in real life and trying to move things around a little bit. But no, I'm not going to the draft. I'll be home knocking out live coverage and tweets and all that kind of stuff. But as I said, it's hard to wrap up here. So you get an episode of Disguise Coverage next week on Wednesday. Then you have a live draft show on the Cover One channel Thursday. Another live draft show, night two, Friday. And then myself and Kendall will also be doing some deep dives into the picks on day one and day two. So you're going to get a deep dive episode of Disguise Coverage or the Film Room. We're kind of figuring out what we're going to be doing here. But you're going to get a deep dive bonus episode Friday morning into whoever the Bills took on night one. And then you're going to get another deep dive episode on Saturday morning for whoever the Bills took Friday night on day two. A lot of content coming from myself next week and from the Cover One team as a whole. So stay tuned, stay on it. It's a lot. Draft season is ramping up and finishing at the same time. And then before you know it, the schedule release is here. We start to get some training camp stuff happening, and then the regular season is right upon us. Stay tuned. Follow me on Twitter. If you did not get anything, and I'm just saying it as a plug, if there's anything I didn't answer on tonight's show, if there's anything you question, thought, comments, concerns, get at me on Twitter. Pro__Ant. Very active on there. If you at me, DM me, whatever, I will answer your stuff. I'm very much on there and engaging and all that type of stuff. So give me a follow on the old Twitter. I'll see you next week for Disguise Coverage. We will hopefully see you all for night one of the draft, night two of the draft, and then for the deep dives from myself and Kendall that'll be coming as bonus episodes next week that we're very excited for as well. So those probably be pre-recorded and then launched on Friday morning and Saturday morning, respectively, to recap the night before's picks and all that kind of stuff. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones all take care of each other and are doing well and are staying safe. I appreciate every single one of you, whether you watched live, listened live, anything and everything, watched later, listened later, whatever have you. Drop a like on your way in, your way out, while you're watching, all that kind of stuff. Appreciate you guys more than you know. Thank you so much for your support. I will see you next week multiple times. Oh, that's really nice. Alistair says, great show, Anthony and Kendall, being active in the chat. Feels like family here. I appreciate you. That's a nice way to go out. I'm going to leave that up there. Appreciate you guys more than you possibly know. See you next week in a variety of ways, in a variety of fashions. And as always, go Bills.